So now I want to ask you, looking at State's Exhibit 43, I'm going to turn it around here. And then in connection with State's Exhibit 43, looking at State's Exhibit 45. Now, looking at the footprints and the blood spatter that's on the bedspread, could that blood evidence be consistent with a person entering the room with the gun and with the holster, unsnapping the holster and throwing it on the bed?
Yes, I mean, the blood that's there is just basically dripping down. The holster itself had blood all over it, like it had been gripped, but you're talking about unsnapping it with bloody hands and just setting it onto the bed. Yes.
So I think Mr. Willis had asked you about a scenario where the gun's already in the room, but it would also be consistent with a scenario where the gun came into the room and the holster was laid under the bed. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, we touched a little bit on cross on the paper bags that were on Mr. Barron's hands.
Yes, ma'am.
Would testing for gunshot residue on Mr. Barron's hands be of any evidentiary value in this case?
Not in this case. My understanding is that if you're in the room when a gun is fired, you don't necessarily have to be the one that pulls the trigger to get the powder on your hands or on your body. A lot of times we can't get testing done on someone who is a victim because the lab will say that they were there, they got shot, so we expect to find powder on them or gunshot residue on them.
Okay. And do you know, as far as the casings and the live rounds that you found in the septic tank, do you know if you found all the projectiles, casings, and fragments?
No, I don't think we found all the projectile fragments. And as far as shell casings, I'm not sure. Like, we found some items in the septic line, but I'm not sure if that was all that was there or if some had already gotten into the septic tank.
And in your opinion, did this crime scene look altered?
Yes, I mean, the fact that the shell casings were missing from the scene, later found in the septic tank, it did show that there was manipulation of the scene at some point.
Okay, and what about the bloody footprints?
The bloody footprints are a person walking around without the shoes. I mean, they're the bloody footprints are the ones that are going through the blood, walking around in the scene itself. There were a couple going down the stairs, so it's movement with someone walking through the blood.
Did you find some bloody footprints in the bathroom in that guest bedroom up there?
Yes.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Just a couple of things that I want to make sure we're super clear on. Specifically with respect to, you said bloody footprints going down the stairs. Okay.
Yes.
You are aware, and you probably have seen the first responders, body cameras and all that, that when Miss Mericle was called down from the bedroom, she came down those front stairs.
Yes.
And was barefoot.
Yes.
And there's bloody footprints, presumably from that travel.
Right.
You're not saying, to make this abundantly clear, you're not saying there's bloody footprints from her going downstairs earlier, meaning before the cops show up.
I can't say when the footsteps were deposited going down the stairs.
Well, it's only one set.
Right.
Okay. And we know she comes down when the cops call her down because you see her on the camera.
Right.
Okay. You're not saying there's a second set of bloody footprints that proves she was running downstairs with bloody feet before the police show up?
No.
Okay. One last thing that Ms. Bagwell asked you about was gunshot residue, and she had some questions about whether it'd be valuable and stuff like that. Okay, so I want to ask you a couple follow-ups, okay?
Okay.
I think you said that in cases where somebody has been the recipient or victim of a shot like this, the lab, meaning the people that do the actual testing, those folks will say, well, we're not going to test for gunshot residue because in cases where you've been shot, that residue is going to come hit you anyway.
You expect to find it, yes.
You'd expect to find it. Person gets shot from a gun at close range, and it could spray residue on them. And so therefore the lab says, there's no point in us doing GSR or gunshot residue. There's no point in doing that because they're going to have residue on them anyway.
Right. Research, from what I understand, is if a gun is fired inside a room and somebody walks into the room within a few minutes, you can still actually get gunpowder residue from walking into the room.
But of course, in this case, the shot was fired behind a closed door, right?
Right.
Gunshot residue is not going to go through the door and get onto Mr. Barron from that shot.
I'm not sure how much would actually travel through. You're going to have a little bit that's going tracing the bullet, but I mean,
Okay.
I wouldn't expect to find a lot, no.
We're going to have to be satisfied, is what you're saying, with the fact that nobody tested Mr. Barron's hands for gunshot residue.
No, they weren't tested.
And that's a decision that you made or that someone else made?
I believe we asked the lab to check his hands, and they may have done a GSR kit on him, but I'm not sure. It was never processed, to my knowledge.
I guess I'm just trying to find out who made the decision to not do the test, if you know.
I don't know.
Last thing, I think when Ms. Bagwell was asking you about the stuff that got flushed down the toilet, I want to make super clear that everybody knows that fragments weren't flushed down the toilet. Fragments of shots.
We didn't find any fragments of the shots.
That's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at. You're saying it's possible that somebody could have gone around and picked up some fragments and also...
Yes, because we're talking about the rounds that we were talking about scattering.
Yep.
You had the copper jackets. There were a good bit of copper jacket fragments, but the lead core, I could not find the fragments of lead core.